Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of Hard Pressed. I'm Aisha, and thank you so much for joining me today. What has happened over the last week? I went to try on wedding dresses last Friday. Very exciting. I did not find, I found a dress that I really liked, a little outside the budget because, I don't want to be in debt after we get married or, we do want to buy a house at some point in time. Um, so I liked it a lot, but there's going to be a dress within the price range I'm looking for. So we're going to go back at some point in time soon and do another round of fashion shows. But it was a lot of fun. Had some of my bridesmaid, maid of honor, my mom, my fiance's mom. It was just a really good time. And man, I was dreading it. I was dreading the appointment initially just because of the way I felt about my body and trying on those dresses. I felt so pretty in those dresses, was such a relief. Um, but yeah, it was a really good time. School has been picking up. It's been busy. We did actually our first mock counseling sessions. I was the client yesterday, but next week I'll get to be the counselor. And it's really intimidating actually starting to practice being a counselor. So that's a nice exciting thing that happened this week. But otherwise it's just I'm still figuring out how to balance everything and try to manage my time more effectively. I've been finding myself procrastinating recently. And I love the stuff that I'm learning. There's a lot of work there's a lot of work in the program itself, but it's stuff that I'm interested in. But somehow I find myself falling behind because I just want to relax or lounge or not think. So I'm going to be making some adjustments. And ultimately, I just not necessarily need to get over my fear of failure, but I know I'm procrastinating, or I believe I'm procrastinating because I'm just afraid of failing. So that's something I'm continuously working on, which kind of brings me to our topic today. I wanted to talk, it's similar to the episode I released about self sabotaging, but this one I wanted to be more focused and give you more tools on how to handle it. But I wanted to talk specifically about something called a self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. And essentially, if you're not familiar with it, it's that you set this expectation for yourself. So when you expect something about something, let me rephrase. When you have expectations about something, and essentially it leads to you proceeding, acting, maneuvering in a way that makes that expectation come true. For example, let's say, which I actually do have an exam coming up on the first week of October. If I expect to fail and tell myself, like, you're not going to do well anyways, I'm essentially going to start acting in a way that leads to that expectation, meaning I'm not going to study enough. I'm not going to take the time to learn the content and all that fun stuff. So I'll essentially proceed and act in a way that would make my expectation of me failing come true so that I actually do fail. So that's what a self-fulfilling prophecy is. And the reason I wanted to talk about it today is because I'm realizing, even in myself, and really I feel like this is something at some point in time, in some shape or form, we all struggle with. And I wanted to talk about really how to go about stopping it in its tracks when it does happen, or how to manage a self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially so that we can all be successful in whatever we put our minds to. But I feel like I'm finding myself in that self-fulfilling prophecy right now in various aspects of my life. like even in my current fitness journey, I have some goals for myself, and I'm just like, well, you're never going to achieve it in my mind. I'm not having the best self talk about it. But then I'm not getting myself to the gym as much as I want to. But at the same time, like, I'm going to give myself a little kudos. These last 2 weeks are the first, last week and the week before, I went to the gym consistently for at least 3 to 5 days. The first week I went for 3 days, and then, or I guess let me say that I got 3 to 5 workouts in. The first week I got 3 workouts in, and then last week I actually got 5 workouts in. Haven't gone to the gym yet this week, and part of me wants to be like, we'll start fresh next week. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. No, we're not. We're going to go to the gym right after this, and then the rest of the week cram in those workouts. But I'm finding myself doing that in that aspect and behaving in a way so that my expectation comes true. And it's not serving me. And I'm sure many of you have been through that experience. And I don't know about you, but I kind of want to nip it in the bud. Like, I don't want to not succeed or achieve the goals that I have for myself. So, the result and the outcome of continuing like this will be the expectation I have that I won't achieve all my goals or what I set out to. And you'll essentially just not live the life that you want to live. Or that's me essentially talking to myself. I won't achieve what I want or live the life that I want to live. So, all the more reason to find out how to not be in that vicious cycle of that self-fulfilling prophecy. So there's a couple things that I've done in the past, or I do every now and then, but I also did some research on ways to kind of stop that vicious cycle of the self-fulfilling prophecy. And one that I've done, but I haven't been consistent about, is becoming more aware of it, and just being analytical about when you are becoming aware of it. So meaning when you have the expectation that you're going to fail, like for example, me thinking about the midterm I have coming up, and if I have the talk of like, well, the expectation is that I fail. One, becoming aware of like when you're having those thoughts. So whether that's jotting it down in your journal or even just pausing and thinking like, okay, I'm realizing I'm having the thoughts of that I'm expecting to fail or expecting this. And these self-fulfilling prophecy can also be a positive thing if it results in a positive outcome, but I'm talking in the sense of more negative outcomes. But it's becoming aware, stopping your tracks and taking note, whether it's a mental note or a physical note of what's happening, that you're becoming aware of it. In the case of my midterm, if I'm having thoughts of I'm going to fail, I'll, jot that like I had this thought. Then I'm going to ask myself, what triggered this thought? What led me to believe that this thought is true? Or what made me at least just think about it? Was it that I'm overwhelmed and stressed? Like what triggered it? Have I failed all my midterms before? What started it? And then start to question why it is you have that expectation. So why do I think I'm going to fail? Is it because I don't think I'm good enough? Is it because of this? So become aware of it. I highly recommend jotting it down physically, because you can start looking back on the patterns and the triggers, whether it's a certain behavior that caused it. For example, let's say I'm looking back at my patterns of failing this midterm. I can see like every time I was beginning to study when I was tired, I had the thought of like, I'm going to fail this exam. Or when I felt overwhelmed because I have a bunch of work to do and I didn't want to do it anymore, I had the thought like, oh, okay, I'm going to fail anyway. So just becoming aware of it and looking at themes and patterns that trigger these thoughts, I think is a first good step. The next step is just or another, not necessarily the next step, another thing that I haven't tried, but I think I'm going to try doing is, well, I guess I have tried it, but I haven't been really successful, is just kind of focusing on what's in my control. Um, as somebody who can be pretty anxious at times, I know that a lot of my anxiety comes from just focusing on everything that is not my business to focus on. But just focusing on what's in your control. And I think even whether it's mentally or physically writing it down, like what you actually are in control of in that situation. So I'm going to continue to use the midterm example because I do have that coming up. And I have a feeling that if remained unchecked, I will fall into that self-fulfilling prophecy. So what am I in control of in this situation? And you can translate this to whatever situation you're in. In this case, I'm in control of the amount of effort I put in, how much studying I do, how I manage my time, how I'm studying. What's not in my control is in this situation. Really, in this situation, there's not much that's not in my control. But just focusing what's in your control of a situation can help seize the feeling of like overwhelmness, I think, that comes with that self-fulfilling prophecy. So just focusing on what you can do. Another thing is that I don't really give myself or let myself do is actually just feel the emotions that I'm feeling at the time that I'm having those negative expectations of myself. We tend to not like, I feel like we just tend to label emotions as good emotions, bad emotions, and things like that, or, label emotions as good or bad, when really emotions are things that we don't always necessarily have control of. I think we do have control of our reaction to that emotions, but emotions are just fleeting, momentarily, moment, moment, momentary. Ooh. Emotions are fleeting, momentary feelings, I guess, for a lack of a better explanation. But we tend to not feel all of our emotions, especially when they're more uncomfortable, like sad, angry, things like that. Now, feeling your emotions, I think, are definitely different than reacting to them. But I think giving yourself the space to actually feel them, acknowledge them, and then letting go of them, proceeding if they're not serving you. So if I'm feeling angry or sad about this upcoming test, I will just give myself the space to be like, all right, this sucks. I feel sad. I'm angry. I'm frustrated, whatever the emotion is. I acknowledge that I'm feeling it. If it's not serving me, which in this case, it probably wouldn't be serving me, I give myself some time to feel it. What I usually do when I'm having big emotions, I tend to set myself a timer. I'm not very consistent about it, but I think this is something I'm going to start re-implementing again, is just putting a 5-minute timer, feel them, wallow, suffer, whatever it is I need to do, feel it for that 5 minutes. Once that timer goes off, we let it go and we move on, because if it's preventing me from achieving my goals, then it's not serving me. So feel what you need to feel. Don't suppress them, because we all know that comes up later in some shape or form. Try not to label them as good or bad. Just feel them and then move on if they're not serving you. But granted, if it's a feeling that is serving you, like whether it's happiness, drive, or whatever, then yes, keep going with it. But if it's not serving you, feel it, then let go. Another big thing I'm aware I'm unsuccessful at, and don't know really how to, well, actually I do know, but managing expectations. We expect so much of ourselves, and I think we live in a time of age where there's a constant need for more. And I know, I guess speaking for myself, I feel like I should always be achieving the next big thing, or I feel like I'm always constantly trying to push myself for more and doing more of this, more of that, instead of just being present and being satisfied where I'm at. So, managing my expectations is something that I've continuously struggled with, and I'm sure some of you watching this can relate. So, I think what's very important to nipping the self-fulfilling prophecy in the bud is just managing your expectations. A good example of this is even just like my fitness journey. I wish I can achieve the ideal fitness goals and aesthetic goals that I have for myself. I wish I could achieve them in 6 months. Sometimes that's the expectation I have, but we all know that that is a very, very unrealistic expectation. So I have to manage that. I have to understand that that takes years and time, and that's something that I have such a hard time with. I mean, we live in an age of instant gratification, uh, and it's something I'm unlearning or trying to unlearn, and it will be something that I believe will help with the self-fulfilling prophecy is just managing my expectations, especially when it comes to timeline for certain things, because if I don't have expectations set accurately, then it's just going to fuel that self-fulfilling prophecy. So let's say my expectation is to achieve something, a physique goal or a fitness goal in 6 months. 6 months come, those expectations aren't going to be met because they're unrealistic. One, and two, I may end up start to kind of just like fuel that expectation. I'll start being less consistent at the gym. So that way that comes true. And then I can tell myself, like, see, I can't do it. You couldn't do it to begin with. That expectation you had of yourself was correct. When really I just didn't set myself up for success by not managing my expectations. So be sure to manage your expectations. I guess maybe talk it out with a friend to find out if these expectations are realistic or whether it's within, like if the expectation is within a topic you're not familiar with. For example, like if I wasn't sure what an expectation and a realistic fitness goal is and my expectations for it, if I was unfamiliar with what that looks like, I'd speak to somebody who is a personal trainer, or somebody who has knowledge of a true what the real process of achieving a fitness goal would look like and how long it would take. Granted, everyone's different, but somebody who has knowledge will kind of give you a range. That way you can manage your expectations properly. Another technique that can help with when you're in that self-fulfilling prophecy is the power of choice. What I mean by that is ultimately you are choosing to believe this expectation. You are choosing to set that expectation, whether you're aware of it or not, but you are actually choosing to set that expectation. So, like in the case of my upcoming midterm, if I say that I'm going to fail that midterm, I'm choosing to believe that. I'm choosing to tell myself that I'm not going to pass that midterm. And then the actions I take, which would, in this case, if I'm in that self-fulfilling prophecy, the actions I would take is not studying as much as I should. You know, that's a choice I'm making. Not actively setting time aside to study, another choice I'm making. And this just kind of all ties into that, you know, focusing on what's in your control. And your choice is actually within your control. So ultimately, you're making the choice to set unrealistic expectations. You are making the choice to negatively believe that about yourself, and you're making the choice with the actions you proceed with. So remind yourself of the power of choice, because it's ultimately within your control what you choose to believe and what you don't. Granted, we are flooded with so many opinions and information and knowledge, some good, some bad in some cases, but try your best to, easier said than done, but try your best to understand that a lot of this is within your control and is your choice ultimately. Now, I think it'd be helpful. Before I even go to some other the questions I feel like you should be asking yourself, another technique, which there's no shock to me saying this, but another technique that is super helpful is just seeing a counselor or a therapist that can help you if you know that you're not going to be able to be aware of the patterns and thoughts you're having that leads to that self-fulfilling prophecy. I recommend seeing a counselor or a therapist who will, in a very beautiful way, make you aware of it and show you that your thought patterns or your actions are leading to essentially like that expectations, and will make you more aware of the thoughts you're having that aren't serving you. So definitely counseling is always an option if you haven't thought about it. I feel like there's certain questions that I know I am going to ask myself after writing them down and really like maybe journal about it, because they're definitely thought provoking. But I feel like these could probably be helpful for you as well. And let's see. So one is, why am I getting in the way of my own success when it comes to like the self-fulfilling prophecy? Like, why is it that why am I getting in the way of my own success? Is it that I'm afraid of failure? Is it that really it's not something I want? But asking yourself, why is it that you're getting in your own way of success? I recommend that you actually journal these down. For me, journal is not always just like pen to paper. You can also just type something up. I know like iPhones have a journal app now, and I don't know anything about Androids. But write it down, type it up, whatever it is. But why am I getting in the way of my own success? The next one, do I feel like I am deserving of success? Boy, does that make you think. And as I'm like saying it out loud, I'm like, oof, there's some things I need to work through here. Because I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough one. And if you don't feel like you are deserving of success, why is it that you don't feel like you're deserving of success? When do you think that thought pattern, that feeling started? But yeah, so do I feel like I'm deserving of success? Why and when did it start? If it's a no. And if it's a yes, great. So I guess why and when did it start is if your answer is no. The next question, and these don't have to be in order. These are just more so questions that I think will be helpful in this process. Another one is, what are my goals? You can separate these into different, emotional, mentally, physical, financial, whatever it is, health goals. What are my goals? Maybe even break them down to different categories. And then after that, are my current actions aligning with these said goals? And I think that just brings a lot of awareness of are you actually setting yourself up for success to achieve these goals by letting your actions align with said goals? And I'm going to tell you right now, the answer to a lot of that for me is no. The goals that I have, my actions are not aligning with said goals, to be quite honest. So I think it just brings some awareness to the actions that you're taking, or that you are, the actions that you're doing may not be aligning with what you set yourself out to do. So, and then another question, Another question would be, am I afraid of failure? I think everybody will say yes to this question. If you put no, please talk to me. I want to know how, because I need to learn to have that mindset. So, am I afraid of failure? If the answer is yes, then why? I can definitely say that I wasn't taught to fail. As silly as that sounds to say out loud, it's something I feel like we need to, as a society, get better at doing. Of like, everyone fails at some point in time in their lives, but we're never taught like how to fail, how to pick ourselves back up after it happens, instead of like tumbling into this dark hole of like we're a failure in all aspects. So, am I afraid of failure and why? And I mean, even for example, like in the gym, something that I've taught myself and anybody that I go to the gym with is I teach them how to fail, because let's say you have a really heavy rep and you don't always have a spotter with you. You need to learn how to fail so you can safely get out of it. So, like, learn how to fail a squat, having those bars on the side so that way you can drop the barbell, or at least like drop it down to the little safety bars. So, teaching, I don't think, I'm not saying that you're not expected to have feelings when it comes to failure, but I think teaching those around you, your future kids, my future kids, your kids, all of that, what failure can look like, and how to pick yourself up after that failure is important. So, am I afraid of failure and why? And last but not least, I think this is another thing that could help, is what's one thing I can do every day to step out of my comfort zone? I don't know what that is for me at this point in time. I mean, it could be a cold dip, and I regret saying it right now because I know my fiance and his best friend are going to be after me for saying that. But I don't want to, okay? Maybe I'll find something else. But it could be whether it's a cold dip or saying hi to a stranger, giving a compliment out to somebody that you don't know. Yeah, doing something that's out of your comfort zone every day, I think will push you. I think just like is priming you for just the uncomfortable of failure, the uncomfortable of change, of hard things, of something new, you name it. So I'm just going to go over those questions again, so that way if you didn't write them down, do this journal prompt, because I feel like it'll bring awareness and highlight to the things that you may need to work on or that you're really good at. So, why am I getting in the way of my own success? Do I feel like I am deserving of success? If the answer is no, then ask yourself why, and also ask yourself when you think that started, that like thinking started. What are my goals? And like I said, maybe separate these into categories, whether that's health, fitness, financial, personal, you name it. What are my goals? And then, are my current actions aligning with said goals? I think that'd be very eye-opening. And then, am I afraid of failure? If the answer is yes, which I'm going to assume a lot of people's answer is yes, then follow it with why. If your answer is no, like I said, holla at your girl, because I need to learn from you. And then, what's one thing I can do every day to step out of my comfort zone? Now, before I wrap up, I did want to add something else that I've been doing as a technique to help with this self-fulfilling prophecy. My faith is really important to me. So prayer is something as well that has been helping me, and just, praying for clarity, guidance, discernment, and all that. So maybe if that is something that's applicable to you, praying it out, pray it out. And if you're not a religious person, then maybe even just meditating, taking some quiet time, breath work. Not necessarily that those things are not necessarily for not religious people only, but there are other options to just kind of clear your mind. Meditation is an excellent tool, breath work as well. So that's all I have for today. I thank you guys for being here. Please like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. I keep saying we, because, Sarah's always here, really in my heart. But we are on Instagram at hardpress.podcast. You can email me at hardpresspodcast@gmail.com and find us on Spotify and YouTube. I still haven't figured out the Apple podcast situation. That's a future me problem. That's not happening right now. But mull this over. But do something good for yourself today. Do something that makes you feel confident, that makes you feel good about yourself. And then just do something good for your brain, whether that's eat healthy, go up for a walk, exercise, do whatever it is. Just do something good for you. And I'll see you guys maybe next week, maybe in 2 weeks. I think I might change the cadence of this. I'll try to keep up with it once a week, but if not, maybe every 2 weeks. But thank you.